Thank you very much, Juniper, for setting that up for us. Welcome, audience, wherever you are, to the Camden Charter Commission's Public Informational Meeting. We're here to answer any questions you all may have. Beatty already has picked one up, but we do have a printed copy of the highlights of the revisions to the charter available. It's also on the town website, along with the draft of the charter is also on the town website. We are expecting Mark Ratner to come, but until he arrives, our first order of business will be to take a look at the minutes from September the 13th and find out if there are any corrections that we need to make.
There he is.
Comes Mark. He's late, so we can't.
I don't see anything for revisions. Does anybody?
Anybody else have any changes?
I don't have them with me, so it's all right.
So do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approving the minutes of the 13th? Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, that's just what we needed. Mr. Ratner, I'm glad you joined us. You said you'd like to speak at the beginning of the meeting. Come right on up. You know the drill. Turn on the microphone and keep it close to you because of our masks.
Hey, I tell that people all the time. I'm going to take the mask off for a minute. My name is Mark Ratner. I am a current select board member of Camden, and I'm here tonight to talk about the process and what you've done and tell people that are watching, curious about the selection, that this commission has done an amazing job, has done an incredible amount of work during a very difficult time, and has come up, I think, with an amazing accomplishment and a package of work that is just outstanding. So I wanted to make sure that people understand from my perspective that as this moves ahead for a vote, it should absolutely be voted for in the affirmative, because I think they've done an amazing amount of work. And I just wanted to make that really clear at tonight's meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And let me write my name in here, and now I'm going to go off to another meeting.
Thank you so much for putting us in. I'd like to follow up with that to let people know that are watching. Hopefully, everybody will turn out on November the 2nd or vote by absentee. There is a statute in the main statutes that require that in order for a revised charter to become effective, it needs to have a total number of votes that equals 30% of the last vote cast in the gubernatorial election, which is 993. So that's a total of yes and no votes. So we need to make sure that everybody turns out to come vote on the 2nd or to vote absentee. Thank you. And there's one other thing I'd like to do before we start taking Beatty's questions. Okay, well, all right, hold on. I have something for each one of the commission members because absolutely everybody can always use another ball cap.
Great.
Here you go,
All right.
Karen.
Thank you, Deb.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody's going to say, what's that mean?
We're supposed to have like $3,000 budget, right?
No, I said people are going to be
Oh,
saying,
no, the caps are coming out of your big salaries that you got for working on the charter for 2 years.
yeah, okay.
And I
Thank you, Deb.
got one for Janice
Yep.
for all of the work she did to help us, because Janice Eason was invaluable to us.
You give her 2 hats.
Well, I have a hat for Bill Kelly, too, because of the work that he put into it. So, folks, what I thought we would do is just go through the revised charter using the highlights that we've prepared for you, just article by article. And, Beatty, if we bring something up and you have a question about it, raise your hand and come on up to the microphone. That would be great. For those of you that might not have seen anything in the paper or been out on the town website, group of 9 of us Karen Grove, Jean White, myself, Deb Dodge, Lowry Sargent, John French, Bob Oxton, Nancy Caudle Johnson, Jim Hurd, and Mark Haskell have been working on revising the charter. And we have worked on this 40-year-old charter to bring it up to date, bring it in line with what current practices are within a town administration, as well as up to date with Maine statutes. And one of the things that we spent time on was trying to make it more accessible and easier for the citizen to read and to go through. And so I'll just start with Article 1, which is powers of the town. One of the things that everybody needs to know is we are not changing the form of government in the town of Camden. The voters are still the legislative body of the town, so we are still a town meeting, select board, and town manager form of government. The first new thing in Article 1 is Article 1, 1.02, number 2, review of ordinance. We have added language that requires the town attorney to review our articles for the warrant, whether they're put on the ballot by the select board or by a citizen's petition. And the reason for that is to make sure that, number one, they're constitutional, there aren't any conflicts, and perhaps to keep yes from meaning no and no from meaning yes. It's just a review for legal purposes. It's not to change the substance at all of what the petition says. The other one, and I'm sorry this was left off our highlights, is 1.03 in the revised charter is petitions, citizens' initiatives, and a referendum. That section, which describes how a citizen can present an article to the select board to be put on the warrant, was in the current Article 8, which is a miscellaneous article called General Provisions, and we felt like it made much more sense for it to be right up front in the powers of the town, right after the section that is about town warrants and the town ballot. So that really is the only changes that have happened within Article 1, powers of the town. Article 2 on the select board, we did eliminate the ability for a part-time employee to serve on the select board. After a lot of discussion about this item, we really decided that any employee, if they were on the select board, would be put in a position of having a conflict of interest. We did not change the for select boards. There is no, no term limits, just as it is now. And we did add a section on forfeiture of office and notification of forfeiture. And this is really to ensure that somebody who's been elected to the select board has a commitment to the responsibilities of serving. It includes considerations for excused absences, and it allows for the replacement of a non-participating member. The other thing we added was something called in the enumeration of powers and responsibilities, we added some guidelines for the establishment of advisory committees as well as their discontinuance. And we have added a requirement that the select board needs to hold a public hearing before discontinuing any advisory committee. And also we added a provision called charter review, and this adds a provision for the systematic review and potential revisions for the town charter every 5 years. This is to make sure that the town doesn't go another 40 years without taking a look and seeing what needs to be done to update the charter. And we also made a slight change in the procedures for select board meetings. Our current charter talks about 3/5, and that members were required for a quorum or to pass anything. And we felt that could be confusing to people, so we've actually just said required 3 affirmative votes as opposed to using the fraction. Article 3 is about town manager's responsibilities, and we really didn't make any changes except we found, just like we did on petitions, we found duties of the town manager sprinkled throughout the current charter. So what we have done is consolidate them so one can see what the duties are for the town manager all in one article. Article 4 is administrative organization, and we did make some significant changes here in that we moved some sections to other articles where it made the most sense. Titles and appointments were moved to the select board because they're the ones that make appointments. Creation of departments, also we moved to the select board article because they're the ones that have the power to create them. and direction by the town manager. It's a description of what the town manager does, and that was moved to Article 3, as well as the responsibility for interdepartmental planning, which is the town manager's responsibility. We moved that to Article 3 for town manager. And then Section 6 in general provisions was moved to Article 6, which is financial procedures. Instead of having bonds sitting in this miscellaneous section, we moved it to where it was related to the most, which is financial procedures. The major change we have made in current Article 4 is the Personnel Board. And we are transitioning the Personnel Board from a board itself to a standing committee appointed by the Select Board. The current Personnel Board has written a very terrific new directive for themselves, which we have forwarded onto the Select Board. Their list of duties of the Personnel Board has actually been deleted. This change does not diminish the value or the role and the need for this committee's work. But since the town created a personnel policy manual in 1992, the list of duties is really obsolete. And it clarifies their role as supportive and advisory to the Select Board and the town manager. And the town manager is the town's personnel director. There was another section on exempt positions and specially classified positions. And because labor and employment laws change so regularly, we decided that that really needed to be in the personnel policy manual and not in the town's charter. Article 5. Article 5 is the article on the wastewater department, and not a great deal has happened in that article at all, except what we did was we added a clause that allowed the wastewater commissioners more options for funding improvements. It is something that the town votes on regularly in town meetings, and this allows an option of the wastewater commissioners or the Select Board to include using service charges as a way to pay for improvements. Other than that, that's all we've done within the wastewater department article. Larry, you want to take on financial procedures?
Sure. Our overall goal in the financial procedure section was to codify some things that had always been happening that way, but it wasn't written down. We felt that it was important to have a written document that passed on methods and procedures to whoever the next group of leaders were. And the other one was to skinny up the whole budgeting personnel process. We found out through research, primarily done by Deb, that at about 25 people, we had far and away the largest budget committee among any of the towns in Maine, and it was made even more unwieldy but through the use of a budget nominating committee that invariably would try to select people that had nodded off in the town meeting and put them up for election. And we just didn't feel it was an efficient process. So we've changed that, so there's no longer a nominating committee. We're going to go from 25 members on the budget committee to 11 members on the budget committee. Each of the people that's interested in being on the budget committee would submit a committee interest form and still be elected at the ballot, at the warrant, at the town, excuse me, at the fire hall, so that we would have people on rotating 3-year terms that are elected that can be involved in putting together the budget. Additionally, the old charter disallowed any consecutive terms by members of the budget committee. And we felt that that was just a bad idea because you want people with institutional knowledge, you want people who've been there before and done this before. So we now allow people to serve 3 consecutive terms on the budget committee before they would have to take a year off. And if they wanted to, they could come back again and serve 3 more consecutive terms. On to the endowment funds and gift management. This was largely codification of what has gone on in the town for many years. It just wasn't written down anywhere. So we've established that there is an endowment fund committee consisting of 3 members that are appointed by the Select Board. They're responsible for hiring professional management to manage the town endowment funds to meet certain standards. And then there's also a beneficiary advisory committee of 5 members that are also appointed by the Select Board, but they are very specific people in the town that participate, and it's going to be their job to identify people that may be able to benefit from disbursement of some of these funds that the town has, and to make that process happen smoothly. So like I said, largely the endowment funds process is just a codification of the way it's always been, but we felt it was important to be written down.
Thank you.
And then you're going to talk about number 7?
Yeah, you want to tackle growth management for us?
Number 7 is growth management and long-range planning. There have been a few changes in here. One is that we established a requirement that all planning board members be residents of the town of Camden. That was never a requirement before, and we thought that it was rather strange not to have that as a requirement. So all members and alternates must be Camden residents. And there was also a discussion of how do we implement, did I miss something?
No, just something you mentioned on 6. Go back, that's right.
On how do we implement the issues brought up in the comprehensive plan, because the comprehensive plan comes up regularly with a number of questions, strategies, and recommendations. So the responsibility for implementing those and prioritizing them has fallen on the select board through the changes in the charter. And the charter, or the select board, will establish which ones they want to do first and who will be involved in that. And then the town manager will cooperate with the select board when town staff has to be involved in that process.
Can I add something here?
Sure.
As far as implementation, there was a question that was posed online one day last week. Somebody was questioning when the charter says that the implementation is going to be directed by the select board, and they were concerned that meant that the select board would then be themselves enacting things. And I wanted to explain, in case there was somebody else that was confused, the select board can only direct implementation on something that has been voted on by the town voters. The comprehensive plan is voted on by the town, just as all of our land use ordinances are. So the select board does not have any power to change those things on their own. But what we are saying here is they will direct the implementation of a plan that has already been approved by the town voters. And I just wanted to make that clear in case there was somebody else that had that question. And the only other thing that Jean mentioned was on Article 6. And I don't know whether we might address this after this, that we're keeping the charter currently.
Well, the charter revisions do not include any change to the way we vote on the town budget. So the town budget will still be voted on by a show of hands at the town meeting, hopefully held in the Opera House, if COVID permitting. We do have something to talk to you later about that, but for right now, we maintain the same process as we've had before, voting in person on the town budget.
Okay, great, thank you. The next article is Article 8, and it's the article about nominations and elections. And one of the things we did, because as Lowry mentioned, we are no longer having a budget nominating committee, we had to make sure we had a line in here that exempted budget committee, people interested in the budget committee, from the petition process. They only need to complete a town interest form in order to have their name added to the ballot. And we also decided we needed to bring this article in line with the state law, which reduces the number of signatures required on petitions from 75 down to 25, and that matches the state statute. General provisions is Article 9, and we have expanded the language for Section 9.03, which is on the conflict of interest. We've expanded it by clarifying what the purpose is, and we've added new language for disclosure of what any potential conflict is and recusal from action, and it applies to boards, commissions, committees, and employees. And then we also added a section that describes some of the responsibilities of the boards, committees, and commissions that are appointed by the select board. It's just really an outline, and it provides guidelines for organization, record keeping, and filling of vacancies for all appointed boards and committees. We thought that ought to be standardized across the board for all town advisory committees and boards. And Article 10 is really a standard language that allows for transition of any current boards and municipal officers, policies, and ordinances that could be affected by the charter. And then we submitted a final report, which is included as Article 11 in the revised charter. And we presented that to the Select Board on September the 21st, which was the formal presentation of the revisions to the Charter. The other good thing that we have done is we've expanded the glossary to help a citizen navigate the Charter a little bit easier, to be able to understand what some of the terms are that are used within our Charter. So that really highlights the revisions that we have made to the Charter. Beatty, do you have any questions? Okay, thank you.
If I could add just one thing.
Oh, sure.
I forget where it is, but we decided early on that we did not want to wait another 40 years before the charter gets
Yeah, it
reviewed
was
again.
in here,
So there's
5 years
specific language in here calling for regular reviews of the charter and updates as they may be needed, because times change or perhaps statutes change at the state level and we need to be in compliance with those. What's the number?
Bottom of page
Section
1.
2. Yes,
Section
it's Section 2, 2.11, number 6, Charter Review.
Okay. Yeah, it's
So
just,
that's in Article 2 under the Select Board, because it is up to the Select Board. It's their responsibility to either take suggestions for changes or review to the Charter, but make sure that somebody is looking at this Charter more often than every.
the charter's
every
a
40
living
years.
document, and it's important that it be considered in that light. This is not a forever carved in stone thing. So we need to advise everybody going forward that you need to look at it and make changes as changes are appropriate.
Any other comments from board members? Lowry mentioned the town voting on the budget. As you all know, for the last 2 years, because of COVID, we have been voting on the town's annual budget by written ballot at the Public Safety Building. And part of our recommendation in our final report to the Select Board was to have them put on a non-binding article on the ballot for November 2nd, asking for how the citizens feel, what is their preference for voting on the budget, whether, as Lowry said, at open town meeting by show of hands or by secret written ballot. And that is Article number 6 on the November ballot. And it doesn't mandate that the town do anything, but is just to gauge the citizens' interest, because they have done it for the last 2 years. We decided not to make that change itself in the charter, but rather we wanted to gauge the citizens' interest on making that type of a change. And if the Select Board chose to do anything with that information, there would be public hearings, public information meetings, and a process that would have to be gone through like any revision or any amendment to the town charter. Anything you would want to add? Anybody?
No, I think we
No,
covered
I
it.
think everything's been great, done a good job,
Well,
very thorough.
I want to thank every one of you and those on the commission that aren't able to be here tonight for 2 years of really hard work. And
Well, I think-
everybody made a big effort, and we did have a bit of an obstacle with COVID that kept us from meeting for a number of months, and then we had to meet by Zoom. And that wasn't the easiest process if one is going through something as complicated as our town charter. But thanks to the contribution that absolutely every one of you have made, and I hope you will wear your hats with pride.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So how are people supposed to respond to this tonight, just so they know?
Oh, thank you very much. There is an email address that is on the town website, so if anybody has any comments or questions, they can email that to us, and I should know that right off the top of my head, but it's on the it's right on the front page where they explain what the revisions to the charter is, and yeah, I think it's just charter@camdenmaine.gov. And so if anybody has any questions or comments, email them to charter@camdenmaine.gov, and you will get an answer. And we hope everybody will go out on the town website and take a look at the revisions. There also are copies in the Camden Public Library, and there are copies in the town office. And we have some extra copies that I'm going to take to the town office tomorrow morning. So there are even some more copies down there available for people to look at.
Yeah.
And if, yes, Beatty? The names are in the final report, Beatty, which is Article 11. It's Deb Dodge, Lowry Sargent, Nancy Cottle Johnson, John French, Karen Grove, Mark Haskell, Jim Hurd, Bob Oxton, and Jean White. Oh, no, I'm glad you brought it up. It's there. It is there. Well, if there aren't any other comments from the commission or our audience, I hope there were some of you out there watching tonight or will watch it on YouTube and use the charter@camdenmaine.gov should you have any additional questions. Thank you so much, and I hope everybody turns out on November 2nd, or make sure you request your absentee ballot from the town office. So with that, thank you all very much. Turn off our mics.
Shortest
Is there a way that you know
Shortest
how to
meeting
turn
ever.
off
Yes.
the